Wow. As I'm doing these little live things, I'm looking at myself. You can look at yourself in the mirror, the video. I'm just like, wow, look at my eyes. I've been crying. I've been crying. I have. And so I titled this one Black. Early on, um, the thought was history. And it started off with um, history regarding Black people, um, indigenous, native people, Black people. And, I think at that time there was a lot of movements, whether we were talking about Black nationalism, Black power, Black this, Black that. And the thought was is that we do have a government, um, not only government, but then we also have um, organizations and so on and so forth. And then there were some that had African American and stuff like that. So it wasn't so much that, from Irene Ratliff's perspective, why we would think that we would, see if these Black organizations or these African American organizations would support Black people. It was not Irene Ratliff's thought, or here it is, that thought of effort. You understand? But I did say that we have a lot of black citizens from it, black, African American, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it was like, okay, to that effort, then what would be the arguments? Why do we have an argument, or why does it seem like it's not supportive, as supportive in areas, or why doesn't it seem as if it's been picked up a certain kind of way? And I said, well, why would I want to write my literature where it focuses on Black? Well, now we begin. I said, this one more before you see me, right? I see you, and for you to make any assumption that I don't have a care about me will be false. And me being Irene Ratliff, of course, and me wanting to address certain things that really is a character and the language for all, when someone else has written something in regards to their beginning. Okay? So now if somebody's researching, matter of fact, I was looking at this material and I said, well, I don't know. I want to see material from way before these people that wrote it, because where would they get that information from to make it seem as if that would be something I want to agree with? You understand? So someone could sit there and say, okay, well, listen, this person wrote this, but then it's like, well, where's their information that they got that from there, when we can consider that we have withstanding books. Matter of fact, you can even look at law books. And readily you have people who read the book, which the Bible itself has a economic, it has social, it has political. But then when you go into any one of those subjects, readily you don't hear outside of somebody saying, well, Black Wall Street. And I'm saying, well, honey, are they looking around? We have areas where people are investing in their community, right? They have small businesses, um, franchise businesses, so on and so forth. Yes. So it was like, okay, um, those persons or groups or whatever, they have the Black in front of it, they have the African American in front of it. Well, how inclusive it is for somebody who may need support on one to not so much assistance, but then start looking at things like the law, and so on. And I'm like, well, you know what? Readily, you would think that there would have been a collective interest to say one thing or the other. It's not disputing where we may have traveled to, but it's that thought of maybe people not taking on the effort, the understanding what it means to continue to apply ourselves when it comes down to our rights, liberties of freedom. So it goes beyond is just saying, okay, being a part of this particular group, that's it, because I just have a job and it's administrative. However, if that's the duties, then you're looking at your administrative director or your president, the chairs, people who may be doing any kind of lobbying and things of that nature. What are the things are they working on? You know what I mean? It's like somewhere in there we shouldn't think that it's just that easy or like it's a heyday. However, what has happened is that people want to keep the peace for sure. Nobody want to sit there and be like we had an argument or that we somebody on a crusade or we want to be like we want to rise and in a revolt. We got services and programs out there, glory, to help us get to where we need to go. Black. Listen, I have met people and they said, well, I'm brown. I said, me too, but I'm black. I did at the moment, at that time, I was like, well, to focus on, oh, we're black power and it is and that. I was just like, well, why would I be talking about BP and I'm not talking about British Petroleum? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, why would that be the point or the question or you know what I'm saying? It's like somewhere in there you would think that I would have some interest not only for my work, but then also, those things that apply to all. You understand? And oh well, here it is. It could be like this. With these people, I was like, there's just too much going like this, like the little bobblehead. And to be like, well, these men, and it's like, well, you know what? If we wasn't worried about so much of that, and yet somebody else, we're going to somebody else and having a, let's say, a sense, not a census, but a caucus, or we're going to meetings, we're going to councils, we're going to the Congress, we're going to the House. I mean, now you see a fruitful, diverse people who are in that same room listening, and everyone is trying to apply something. For it to be grassroots, to be like, oh, it's just all this, oh, we're inclusive because we all kinging and everything. Oh, yes. I started looking at that word queen and that KN. I was like, oh, shit, KN. I don't know. I just call me Lily. But to be like, that thought that, we do have these various entities. Some have said that they're over 100 years old, that had the conversation about different advancements for people of color. We've had people who have said something about them applying and achieving their goals under Christianity. We've had conversations of empowerment. We've had political conversations about um, you know, our justice and our rights, you know. A lot of those things, even though the language was went to civil, was human, you know. Then that other thing for be like, okay, what is that and the other? And this is like, oh, you know what? It's sad, but I think that maybe perhaps not so much about, oh, you're carrying this, or, I think it's unfair, especially when um, people have, kind of um, not aware about their work. Shit like that. No, seriously. You know, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, and it's like, well, you know what, when you're all inclusive, or being matter of fact, there's this excluding. You may take a conservation group who focus on land. They may now incorporate birds or something like that. You got people who focus on gorillas exclusively. Then you may have some that just focuses on turtles. You understand where I'm coming from? Because we understand that, hey, these different areas there is an issue. But for somebody to say, well, listen, Ariel. Well, listen, we're able to do this and do that. And he said, out of all that, all that you want to tell me is about how you were able to. That was it? You wanted to talk about mixing? Yes, yes, we want to mix our resources because we tie our money is tied into this government and this tax system too. You understand? Um, so it wasn't that thought initially. Matter of fact, it was the way that I had addressed it somewhat was looking at some of the things or looking at the various countries, some of them black countries, some of them mixed, some of them white. And I was just like, wow, why aren't we at a response? Meaning, we do have religious groups. We have the Salvation Army. There's also the American Red Cross, and they readily go and provide services. So, for I can name out any of those black organizations that says, well, okay, well, they have X amount of men. It was like somewhere near, even if we're looking at security, that we should also be able to look at a response. Now, there's one thing to talk about a local area, but then there's another one to talk about being able to serve the international community. So, when we looked at what took place in a couple of these countries, we didn't have a team that was able to respond and to be like they were able to care. And so at that point, you start talking. My thoughts were on um, if they're getting the proper training and understanding how not only to care for themselves but also be responders in regards to a natural disaster or there was some other things that took place not only in their country but then also abroad. When they were doing a lot of the fundraising, a lot of the countries did not have the resources to say, okay, well, this is the amount that they donated. However, if it was just a very small amount, they did give to I think it was one of the countries they had gave to a campaign that they were running. You understand where I'm coming from? So it has something to do with us being able to make that response that was necessary to say, okay, we're a part of, let's say that kind of structure. You know, I was talking to somebody else too, and I said, they were saying trying to talk about bear arms. And I said, well, listen, is this part of security? So now when you start looking at certain things, when they want to start talking about security, responders, and I'm not just talking about the ambulance. I'm talking about people, us being able to move, get on planes, get where we got to go, and be able to respond to, any one of those things, like I just said. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know what a lot of those organizations with their are the .gov, for black organizations and all of them. I'm not quite sure really what their manifestos look like. I don't know if they're making enough noise. Don't look, wait until the last minute. We're almost coming around that time. Has there been a review? I know at one time the Supreme Court was talking about how they wanted to remove the Voting Rights Act. Well, why do we have to re-sign that sucker every now and again? I don't know if we have people who are properly in place to talk about the Constitution and stuff like that. You understand? I don't know what their agenda is or the conversations are, I don't know what their work is. They can hire different people and stuff like that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just tell you, like I tell you, it's like I'm out here and I'm like, okay, Maxine Waters is a good person that I don't even want to bring out there like that. How rude of those people to sit there and go around with that woman because she bought her a new home. They're wrong for that. But then I'm like, my thought, even looking at Maxine Waters, she's been a vital voice for here, this the state of California. But it's like, okay, somewhere near, does she have people? Have she actually work? Is she at a process or work to transfer or to even hand over that flame of fire that she has to move somebody else in place? You understand where I'm coming from? You would think that any one of those groups of people that not only I mean, some people have just been in office for a while. I understand one thing about a vote, but it's another thing just talking about people who are working. But for Maxine Waters, I mean, I'm talking about from right now. But it's like, okay, well, do she have a group of people? I understand about the school and everything, but who is she helping? Who's helping her? You know, get her work done so she can say, okay, well, here's the baton. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, then they, oh, we have to go here, you go here. I'm like, well, honey, those a lot of them go travel from their state to another state. They go to DC all the time. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, once she gets to DC, then you know what is that? What is that work right there from DC to California? Like I said, I'm not sure what the Black Caucus and all them are doing. I don't know what's on their checklist. You know what I'm saying? You mean tell me they got a lot of those interns in there? Do we have lobbyists? How's this stuff working at the Supreme Court? You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, okay, we don't want to have enough others. I'm like, well, what the hell is the problem? We got the rest of us. I mean, I'm telling you, literally on the United Nations front, this is bizarre. There's some big business and talk going on. Are they a part of here? It is that conversation at the United Nations. Do they got a seat there? If they don't want it, SMC do. Oh shit! Now where's my crew? You understand? The work doesn't stop. It doesn't just stop at a paycheck. Oh, what's up, Rick? One moment. You got some money you ain't put on your hair. Where's my... Yeah. You hear this? You got your flip-flops on right now. And here does you see the people. But see, you are with those people. Those people, they do think that. And it's just like, well, here it is. If they want to negative, it doesn't make any sense. And we got clergy get paid good money. If they were over here, we just want to see what she may get. I was like, wow, this is shit. Human right thoughts that we have coming from some Ariel. I told you I would have a thing on Ariel. I think I'm going to do it in parts too. So we could just kind of understanding, for real. It's not funny. But I'm like, okay, now you have some of these other groups and stuff. Hey, I'm all for the galas. I'm all out for the parties and stuff. But yet those organizations have something to do. A lot of us, oh, well, here it is, we come through, or it is, hey, that was going on yesteryears too. I mean, we really did have, and we really do have black universities. You understand where I'm coming from? That's one thing to say, okay, at our time or our lifetime, or here it is the first time or the first one, and here it all them tokens. For us to continue to have our hands down and up to try to get us where we need to go. And to make sure that we have the language written in them law books and those economic books. And yet here it is, our thought and scope about family. Now we're talking about history. Whether you're talking about your community, you're talking about nationally or internationally. I mean, matter of fact, I haven't heard no one yet readily talking about how they doing international work. And we got the United Nations. What are any of our black people up there? Oh yeah. We do. We have was it Care Africa, Africa Care, or something like that. Yes. As in Africa Care. But there's a whole lot of stuff going on with all them people and they speak Arabic. We got people who speak Arabic. You understand? So when they said black, and they said, well, here, did you write on it? Well, I'm going to tell you about Irene Ratliff's story, and I'm putting it all up in there in that chick, and I think that little package will come called Street Meat Company. I told you I will do a videos on Ariel. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, that's interesting. Like, I don't want to be calling them out like that. But yeah, all that black and African American businesses or politics or something like that. Do you know what the work is? Do you know? Because Somewhere there, oh, see, we hear this, we want to tell them. And then I'm like, honey, I'm going to tell them too. Oh, yes, 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 honey. Glory to goodness. I mean, matter of fact, I don't even know too many of us who's actually even on that immigration ball. Now, you have some people who want to talk about dual citizenship. And, then at that point, readily looking at any of those 50 something countries in that over there in that, across the Atlantic, and really it's more than that because now we talk about the middle and, that on the red side and that on the Indian side too. But that has a relationship. In fact, I mean, looking at any of these organizations, how many of them are actually part of the African Union or the European Union, the United Nations? And so they want to say, well, Irene, here, I say, I ain't gonna flip to you, honey. We got a lot of organizations that have supported um, not only integration or interracial relationships, but that the outcry to address so many different things need to be there. And readily, this is the reason why I had the questionnaire, is to kind of bring those kind of questions and answers out so that we can find ourselves in the right places. And let me tell you something else. What it was for it was the exclusion, not only with the state, but through some of these, government entities. What are the proper IGOs and stuff like that? In IGOs and the government. Well, what it was is that they wanted people to have a lot of education. And it's just like, okay, with the education and experience and all of the kind of stuff. And I said, well, how this 25-year-old gonna have all the experience and education? Well, they do. Some of them go travel, they get their education, and they get the kind of understanding and so on and so forth. Anyway, I don't know. Like I said, I can go and search them, but a lot of information. I don't know what minutes they've been doing. Get out this horn, but So my work, and I don't want here it is anything to be misinterpreted about somebody else at a bookstore and what they had to say, about our art and our not only our art but our history and all this kind of stuff, and how those things are sacred to here it is the writer, or yes, that's it, to that person's intellectual property. So that writer wrote the book. Yes, the writer wrote the book, and yet here it is the intellectual property matters. That sacredness. They want to make it everything because if we're looking at even let's say looking at one thing, that person who performed, that's their act. That person who gave us that poetry, that's their act. You understand? You know what I mean? I don't know if I would. I'm like, well, honey, I ain't gonna fib to you. Just sit there and listen. I told you I'm gonna have something about Ariel after a while. But to be excluding and then say, oh, you just there, and it's just like I heard that. Wow. And be like, well, it came from this. I ain't gonna. Well, honey, we read the Old Testament, and there's some sad stories up in that book. Exactly. That would probably be the point. Anyway, peace out, people. I'll come back. Like I said, I'm gonna break that down. We're gonna be talking about Ariel like that, and I ain't too shy to tell you. Peace out, people. Oh, black hamburger.